had a good turnout, people that were interested, and a lot of people. I mean, I think it's one of the best franchises. You're missing out if you're not watching Atlanta, but we'll just do a quick review and chat with you guys to see what you are thinking about the Real Housewives of Atlanta lately. So before we get started, guys, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps my videos, and I am trying to grow my channel, so please subscribe if you're not already, and turn those notifications on. Okay, guys, I want to tell you something else. I'll start with this before we get into everything. Taylor Armstrong, who will be returning to the Real Housewives of Orange County, did an interview on Behind the Velvet Rope, and we got a couple of minutes, a clip of it. And Taylor kind of breaks down the situation of domestic violence and Russell and the suicide in detail. So if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about Miss Taylor and everything that transpired years ago on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills with her husband, who is now deceased, then you should check out that podcast. All right, guys, the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I didn't really dig the episode last night. I felt like there was like a lot of filler going on. I was excited to see the women in Jamaica. They were, it was not a great episode. The ending was okay, but I just feel like the beginning was slow moving, and definitely not one of the best episodes this season. It takes them, like, I don't know, the first 20 minutes before we even see them arrive in Jamaica. But nothing really happens. Like, we see Kenya, her +1 cancels because they're sick, and Marlo brings her florist, who is like a brother to her. And then, of course, Candy and Todd were there, and Drew and Ralph were there. And I want to talk a little bit about them. I'm sure that other people have an opinion about Ralph. He's been sort of problematic since he came on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Remember when he just went missing for 3 days? And he said he was in Daytona Beach, Florida. Drew didn't know where he was at. Well, he has now written a book on, I guess, like, navigating and helping people like that have blended families, especially something that's geared towards like stepfathers. Drew in her confessionals is pretty open that she doesn't really know why Ralph has written a book. She doesn't know what's in the book. He never even told her, and she doesn't understand how he's writing a book, giving people advice when they haven't figured out their situation yet, because he said he would adopt her oldest son, Josiah, who is not his biological son. And then after he spoke with Josiah's real father, he decided not to adopt him. Now, this is a little bit confusing, guys, because we know that Josiah's dad hasn't been much of a part of his life. But we saw last season we saw Josiah and his dad, like, reconnecting. Like, didn't we see him come to the house? Wasn't he going to come for a visit or something like that? And so it's like kind of crazy to me that the dad never had anything to do with him, and now that they're on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, he's starting to come around, and he would be brokenhearted if Ralph adopted Josiah. And then I wonder, is Ralph just saying that? Does he feel uncomfortable about it, and so he's just saying that, and that's why he doesn't want to adopt Josiah? Whatever the reason is, Ralph wrote a book. And when he brings his publicist into the house to meet Drew, it was clear to me that the publicist and Ralph had a conversation prior to meeting Drew about how they were going to get her on board with the book, and how they were going to be delicate about certain situations, because I think he really prepped the publicist on like the do's and don'ts with Drew. Now, Ralph says that the vision for the front of the cover, well, the publicist says it. She says she thinks it should be Ralph by himself, which I thought was so funny, because I felt like Ralph just didn't have the kahunas to say that himself. And then the cover would be Drew and Ralph and the children. It would be like the family, or the back of the book would be that, and the cover would be just Ralph. And then he asked her to write I forget what it's called. It's like at the beginning of the book when they like, what is it called? I can't remember. But he asked her to write that. And she can't even say yes because she's like, I don't even know what this book is about. And I kind of think that he was like putting her name on it, almost like to think that maybe it would sell more books. Did you guys get that feeling? Because that was kind of the feeling that I got. Like he wanted her to have something in there so that he could include her as like advertisement for the book because people do know her. She is a Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I feel like that was his way of doing it. Like if she writes the opening and she's on the back of the book, not the front, then he can use her, free advertisement, I guess. Anyways, this leads to a big discussion in Jamaica where Candy and Marlo go at it back and forth. I don't know if I can imagine this scene in a restaurant because it just seemed like they started with their salads is when the conversation started and Candy and Marlo started to go back and forth and Candy says like, Marlo, why are you so involved in this? Like, why do you care about Josiah and, Ralph and Drew's situation? Because, like, you have your own situation with your two nephews who you had living with you, and now you don't, and you told them to get the F out, and they're in a 2-bedroom apartment with your sister and her own children, right? And her and Candy start to go at it at this dinner in Jamaica. But before that, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Nothing really happened before they even got to Jamaica. We didn't. I mean, they made fun of the birthday party for Sheree. Like the balloons came from the dollar store. The food tastes like ashy feet, is what Kenya said. It does look like they got a really nice resort in Jamaica. All the women are very happy with their rooms. When they're riding up to the resort in the golf carts, Kenya spots a fine piece of man from a distance. And it was so cute because they like whip around in the golf cart and they go back to him. They leave all the women sitting and they go back to the dude and they get his phone number. And she said Kenny was acting kind of shy, and so she had to be like the wing woman. And I thought she did a great job being the wing woman. She gets dude's phone number. He's from England, and he looks crazily, eerily like that dude that Kenya dated before. Do you guys remember the one that was like really fit and he was like crazy? It's when she first bought her house, and he like went around and bashed out the basement windows and blacked out the cameras. I can't remember his name, and everyone said she was like paying him. I don't think she was paying him though, because if he did some shit like that, he must have been, upset. But anyways, the guy in Jamaica looks eerily like the ex that busted out the window. I can't remember his name. And he comes to dinner with her, and I thought that like was pretty ballsy considering like he didn't know her, and he's got a film crew with them, and all these people, all these couples on this trip, and so he, the new guy Kenya, who sees from far away, ends up joining them at this dinner where Marlo and Kenya start going back and forth about Marlo's opinion of Drew and Ralph. And did you guys see Candy shade Marlo in her confessionals and say, because Marlo brought her friend who is a florist, but she says it's like her brother, and Candy said that she doesn't want us to meet any of her sponsors. I was like, ooh, that wasn't very, Marlo ain't gonna like that at all. Martha was saying some shitty things about Todd. She was saying Candy puts her mother before her man, and that when Todd first saw Candy when they were in Africa, he called her like a country hick or something weird like that. And Candy basically said, like, I didn't even really, talk to him during the Africa trip. Like, he was new, and we didn't end up really like talking and linking up to like the last day of the Africa trip. So whatever he called me before he spoke to me, said about me before he actually even spoke to me, I don't even care about. Like, I don't care. And Candy is engaging with her back and forth, which I wish Candy just wouldn't have, because I don't think that, like, it was very obvious that, like, Marlo was not making a whole lot of sense with her whole side of the situation, because she was saying, oh, okay, so Ralph, you don't want to adopt Josiah, so it's like, you don't want to make it official, you don't want him on his tax returns, it's like, you want to be there like a friend, like, you don't want to be there full time, you want to be there like a friend, and everyone's like, we're kind of like, what do you mean? Like, the kid lives with them. right? Full time. Like, that doesn't, they were kind of looking at Marlo like, doesn't make a lot of sense. And Marlo was saying, like, I'm a foster child. I know what it's like. And if this doesn't make sense to you guys, that's okay. But it makes sense to me because, I understand and can relate and you guys can't. Blase, blase. And Candia's best line was like, "You go on and get a husband before you're gonna tell me what to do with my husband, right?" And she was like, "You put your mother before your man, da 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 da, da yada yada yada." It was so bad that Candy's friend's a husband who looks like some Harley guy. Did you guys notice that? I cannot think of Candy's friend's name. I want to say Monty. I don't know if that's it though. She's new and they just brought her on and they are showing her in the confessionals. I cannot remember her name, but her husband's on the trip and he looks like a Harley Davidson biker dude, and he doesn't look like he fits in their little circle there in Jamaica. Like, he just doesn't. He, even though he's in Jamaica, he doesn't look dressed like he's in Jamaica. Just saying. Um, and then they kind of just leave us hanging for the next episode, and I don't know. I just don't. I didn't really think that it was a great episode. I want to know what you guys think, if you thought it was a good episode or not, and also what your opinions of, like, the future of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, because this was really supposed to be like a make or break for the season. We have heard blind items that there is like a new person on production that they don't like, and that they're like hoping that they, finish their year out, their year contract, and not come back next year. The women actually paid for their own like shoot to come out with the season. I don't know the exact word for it, but they paid for that themselves because Bravo and production wasn't going to pay for it. So they were like kind of boosting their own advertisement for the franchise because they paid for, their press photos. And yeah, I don't know. They're blaming it on the guy in production. We know Carlos King is killing it. He's doing his talk show. He's interviewing the housewives, the original Real Housewives of Atlanta. He had Kim Z on, and he's killing it. So anyway, guys, I want to know what y'all think of last night's episode. I don't think that it was amazing. I thought it was a little boring. I'm just going to be honest. Even the fight between Marlo and Candy was not that great. I did not think it needed to go that far. Let me read a couple comments first, though. He reminds me of Teresa's ex-husband, the Harley-looking guy. Oh, you're saying that her husband reminds you of Joe Giudice from the Royal Housewives of New Jersey. A little bit. I could see where you might get that. Do you guys remember when Joe Giudice used to ride a bike because he lost his license because he got a DUI, and then he tried to go into the BMV and get act like he was his brother and he lost his license and he needed a new one. Marlo uses her orphan card a lot, but she lacks the humility that someone who starts with less ought to have. Galaxy, I love that statement. I feel like that's very true. Marlo is missing some of the humility that would come with someone when you start at the bottom. People are feeling like she's using the boys as a storyline. They feel like it's embarrassing to the children to put all of their information out online. Not on, I mean, just at national television, and they got to go to school, and people see this, and now she's putting them off on her sister. And in the next episode, there's like a hole in the wall, and so she's blaming one of the children for it, Michael. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a lot for kids. Adults have a hard time like handling fame and attention and press, and like putting your two children on the show when you're going to be around them, supporting them and loving them. That's a little different than like this situation, because their mom's in prison, and that's really tragic and probably really painful, and there's probably a sort of a grief cycle going on with the children because they're grieving the loss of their mother, and even though she may not be dead, she is incarcerated and she's unavailable, and so it would be natural to think that the boys would have a grieving process, trying to learn a different way and not having their mother. So Marlo should have always had these children in therapy since day one. They should be in a family therapy session as well, where they can address their issues with a person that mediates a situation and helps them learn how to communicate and deal with their emotions in a healthy way. I think Marlo still has a lot of deep rooted issues that she hasn't dealt with. But I think for the children's sake, and if she wants to have a happy home, then that would be a great option for her and the boys. And she should know that, because Marlo has an endless supply of resources and money, and there's no reason that she can't do that. Another thing she could think about doing would be to be investing in like a home, maybe not such nice a townhouse, but a home, something that's like a little bit bigger with a yard, because they are boys and they probably want to be outside throwing football around and doing that sort of thing. They don't have much of a yard, it looks like. And that would probably alleviate a little bit of pressure in the home too, because then they're not stuck inside all the time. They have a yard, they can have friends over. You don't feel like you're living on top of each other. Just saying, like, maybe don't have such a nice townhouse or whatever and just get an average home. Now you're making Real Housewives salary. Like, go do what Kenya did and just pay for it outright. Have one of your sponsors pay for it outright. Something like that. But like, get those boys and yourself into a house. And you know what? Move your sister and her two children into Marlow Hampton. Buy a house with 5 bedrooms. Give all of them a bedroom. Give yourself the nice one with the closet, and do something for your family. Because I feel like that's shitty that Marlo lives the way that she lives with the money that she has, and her sister is busting her ass working 2 jobs with 2 kids. That's just shitty. If I had a sister and I was like Marlo and had all that money, like, I wouldn't make my sister work like that. I'd probably buy her a house of her own, to be honest. I don't even have a sister, but if I did, I would buy her a house of her own. Just saying. I want to know your guys' opinions. Make sure you guys comment, and make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and we will talk soon, guys. Bye.